Hello everyone. Today the topic of our discussion is development of integumentary system, and we are on the section 1 of this lecture, that is the development of skin and its appendages. What we will be discussing in this lecture section, we will be discussing the integumentary system and how is it formed, the development of skin in its all layers, and how it is actually developed from epidermis, and development of epidermis, how it takes place along with other structures. So what is integumentary system? Integumentary system actually means skin and its associated structures or its appendages. It consists of its skin and its derivatives. And what are the derivatives it includes? It includes sweat glands, sebaceous glands, nails, hair, and mammary glands. Now, these all five structures are actually associated with skin, are also called as skin and its derivatives. So they form the part of the integumentary system. This is a cut section, a cross section of a skin of a normal skin of an adult. If you appreciate over here that has three layers, I will be briefly discussing whether it has two layers or three layers, because there is contradictory theories. Some say that there are two layers of the skin and others say there are three layers. But on the right, you can appreciate in this diagram, they have written three layers of the skin. And what are they? The outermost layer is termed as epidermis. The second middle layer is termed as dermis. And the lowermost layer is termed as hypodermis. You can appreciate there is a hair shafts and hair follicles are running around. These hair follicles are actually extension of the epidermis which go deep into the dermis. You can appreciate this is the hair follicle which starts from the epidermis and goes down deep into the dermis, which is surrounded by peripheral nerve endings, as well as this hair follicle is actually supplied with there's called as hair papilla. These are the areas which are of the dermis which actually project into the hair, and they're actually supplying the arterial and venous supply to the hair so they can grow. On the sides of this hair follicle, you can appreciate there is a sebaceous gland which actually secrete an sebum or oily substance into the hair follicle, which come out of your sweat pores. Over here, this is a muscle which is attached to the hair follicle called as erector spinae. This has erector pillae muscle has a role. When it contracts, it causes this hair follicle to be displaced, resulting in the straightening of the hairs, and we have goosebumps. Whenever we are exposed to cold, this results in the contraction of this muscle, and this contraction makes the hair stand up on our skin, resulting in goosebumps. If you appreciate over here, this is not just simply three layers, there are a lot of other structures as well. And this is the sweat gland, and this is the eccrine sweat gland present over here, and this sweat is produced and gradually moved up towards the epidermis. And when the sweat evaporates, this results in a cooling effect, and thus evaporation of the sweat causes cooling of the skin overall. Now this is a corpuscle or onion-like structure present in it. This is called as Pacinian corpuscle. What it is a mechanoreceptor. What are mechanoreceptors? These are mechanoreceptors which are actually sensing vibration in the skin. So vibration is sent by these mechanoreceptors called as Pacinian or onion-like corpuscles. These are the free nerve endings which are actually going to the erector muscle, which are also present around the hair follicle, and they are also present in the almost in the upper part of the dermis at the dermo-epidermal junction as well. And what are they? They have a role in the whenever you get a cut, these actually nerve ending gets exposed to the outer side, and as a result there is a lot of pain. Or when there's a burn, a superficial burn, these nerve endings actually get irritated, resulting in a lot of pain of the superficial burn or a cut of the skin. So coming to the development of the skin consists of two layers that is derived from two different germ layers. In my previous lectures, if then these we have discussed in detail what is epidermis, what is ectoderm, what is mesoderm, and what is endoderm. No, epidermis is actually derived from superficial epithelial tissue derived from the surface ectoderm. If you go back to my lectures, you would see there was initially the formation of ectodermal ridge. When cells continued to divide, they formed a cavity inside. The cavity was called amniotic cavity, and outside there was an ectodermal cell, a layer of ectodermal cells. Now, this ectodermis actually gives rise to epidermis of the skin later on in adult life. While dermis is derived from the deeper layer of the connective tissue is from the mesoderm. We all know that there was two germ theory and then there was the trilaminar or bilaminar germ. I've already discussed all that in detail in my previous video lectures. And to revise that, you can go back to those lectures as well. Now, dermis is derived from the mesoderm and epidermis is derived from the ectoderm. Now this is a diagram also showing the same thing. This is the epidermis, this is the dermis, and this fatty tissue also, there's a fatty tissue and also called as hypodermis. So this lower layer is also called as hypodermis. And the point over here is that epidermis is derived from the ectoderm and dermis is derived from the mesoderm. Now this is, I was just talking about that some books or some authors take it as there are two layers of the skin, the epidermis and the dermis. But now the latest books recommend that there are actually three layers. There is epidermis, there is dermis, and there is hypodermis. Hypodermis is actually lying in the connective tissue over here. And this is the diagram, if you can appreciate again. This is the erector pili, hair follicle. These are the sebaceous gland. This is the hair going out of the ectoderm. This is the sweat gland, and these are the Pacinian corpuscles, and these are the arterioles and venules which are present in the subcutaneous tissue. Now, this upper layer is called as the epidermis. Then there is a dermis, and this is the hypodermis. Now, this epidermis also has sub 5 layers. I will be discussing all those 5 layers of the epidermis in details in the next sections. Coming to the development of epidermis, how the epidermis develops. In the 4th or 5th week of the skin, the embryo consists of simple cuboidal epithelium, the surface ectoderm. By the 7th week, the surface ectodermal cells proliferate and form a layer of squamous epithelium, the periderm and basal germinative layer. Now, the concept of all this ectoderm and all this is that there is a single layer of cells which is continuously dividing to give rise to different layers. And as these cells divide, they're actually pushed upward. And as they're pushed upward, they lose their potential to divide. Now, this is very important because when we'll be discussing the germinative layer, we'll be coming to this concept again. So, if you see on the right side in the diagram, this is the mesoderm, this is the surface ectoderm, and these cells are started to divide and they're giving rise to layers and layers of cell. Eventually, the outermost layer becomes the periderm. Then this becomes an intermediate basal layer, and the mesenchyme has actually also enlarged as it is also dividing. During the first and the second trimester, the epidermal growth occurs in stages, which results in an increase in epidermal thickness, leading to formation of large, thick epidermis. We'll have a germinative layer, we'll intermediate layer, and the outermost layer would be the periderm layer. So, what is vernous schizosa? The peridermal cells continually undergo keratinization and desquamization are replaced by cells arising from the basal layer. Now, understand what is keratinization. As the cells, a normal cell, as you know, would have a structure, there would be a cell membrane outside, will have a cytoplasm inside, and all the organelles will be present inside these cytoplasm. As this basal layer cells divides and starts to move upward, actually there is a decrease or shrinkage of its cytoplasm, and this shrinkage is replaced by keratin instead of cytoplasm. This formation in which the cells actually shrinks and the cytoplasm disappears and keratin is laid down into the cells is termed as keratinization. And what is desquamation? As you know, it's a Latin word. Desquamation means to actually shed off the fins of the fish. It's a Latin word. So shedding off means as this basal layer has formed, now it's dividing and the cells are moving upwards. Actually, the cells don't move upward, but it's just that more and more cells are actually laid down in the lower layer, so they have increased in the size. And when you view it on the microscopes, it appears that actually the cells have started to move upward, and the uppermost layers actually undergo keratinization. And once they have undergone keratinization, they're actually shedded off. This shedding of this keratin layer is termed as desquamation, and these are replaced by those cells which were actually further down, and then they also undergo keratinization, then they are shedded off, and the new cells are actually produced by the basal germinative layer. The exofoliated cells form part of the white greasy substance called as vernous cystosa that covers the body of the fetus. In adults, you have sebaceous glands, you have sweat glands, but in fetus, you have actually this is a greasy substance which is actually covering the same called as vernous cystosa only. In the diagrams, you can appreciate this is the epidermis which is continuously dividing, although they marked epidermal ridge as well, and I will be discussing that in the next slides as well. Now this, as the epidermis divides, an intermediate layer formation, and the outermost layer is the periderm. But as they are dividing, they're at the junction of epidermis and dermis, these melanoblasts have started to form, which will later on forming the melanocytes, and I will be discussing how this melanoblast form melanocytes in the next sections. Coming to the stratum corneum, as I just told you that actually epidermis is further subdivided into 5 subtypes, which is the replacements of peridermal cells continue until about 21st week. Thereafter, periderm disappears and stratum corneum forms. Now this is the mature, this is the dermis, this is the epidermis, which is further divided into 5 subtypes or sub layers actually, and at birth all the 5 layers are present. What is the outermost layer? Now the periderm has disappeared, it has converted into stratum corneum, then is the stratum lucidum, then stratum glandosum, then spinosum, and then the last is the stratum germinatum. And below the stratum germinatum, you have dermis, which is actually divided into 2 layers, which is the papillary and reticular dermis layer. By this, we come to the end of our section 1. We covered what is the integumentary system and what are its appendages and associated or derived structures. We covered how the development of skin takes place and how it is derived from ectoderm and mesoderm. And we have discovered that how this epidermis divides into 5 layers which are actually present at the birth. Keep watching sqadia.com for the next section. Thank you.